Hi. So the first week of classes, I had to take the Tabooness Survey. And part of the idea was just to kind of get you thinking about which words are more taboo and which words are less taboo. But it's also an interesting source of data to kind of collect this. We've got 150 students who are signed up for the class right now, give or take. And out of that, I've got about 118, I think, are the number of students who took the survey in a speedy enough manner that I could actually use their results. And I took out the results of those students who are not native speakers of English. We'll talk about why I do that a little bit later in a later module. We'll get to the differences between native speakers and non-native speakers. So for now, just kind of understand that I did a little bit of tweaking there where I just wanted to focus on those people who grew up with English as their first language. So let me start looking at some of the data and see what kinds of patterns we can find. Now, let's see if I can zoom in here. There we go. So you can see then that cunt rated the highest. All right, so cunt rated just about over a 6 on its average tabooness out of 7, 7 being the most taboo. And then nigger was slightly less, followed by cocksucker, fuck, cum, pussy, bitch, clitoris, whore, asshole, bastard, dick, shit, piss, and turd is at the lowest. Okay, so that's how it pans out when we average them all together. Now, of course, there's variation, so not everybody agreed on the ratings, not surprisingly. I mean, we don't expect people to agree on these things, but I do want to look for patterns. So what we see, and I think probably most of you would have predicted this sort of pattern here, that cunt is going to be at the top, turd is going to be at the bottom. There might be some in the middle that you might be a little surprised by where they fall, but I think that probably most of this is expected. Now, when we look at the individual items, this is where I think things get kind of interesting for us. So I'm going to start with turd, which was at the low end. We'll look at the low end first. And what we expect to see, of course, is that since this is at the low end, we're going to expect to see the highest bar is going to be at the left edge and then get progressively lower. And there was one person who rated it at I think a 6. But for the most part, you're getting the pattern we would expect. So one person got a 6, one person a 5, and then so on up. And more than 70 people rated it as a 1, that is not taboo at all. And then the other one that was at the low end was piss. Now piss was slightly more taboo for most of you, so we have pretty much equal division here. 45 students rated it a 1, 45 rated it a 2, and then you get it going on down. And that's, again, a nice, smooth pattern that we like to see. And when we look at the other end of the spectrum, cunt being the one that was most taboo, likewise, we expect to see this nice pattern here, where the right edge now, instead of the left edge, is going to be the one that has the most. And again, more than 70 students rated that one the highest as a 7, and then you see progressively going down. And then our next most taboo was nigger. There was actually one person who rated it as a 1, but again, you've got most of the people rating it a 7, and in fact, you've got a little bit less than we saw with cunt, but more than 60 people rated it as a 7, and then you see it getting progressively lower for each of the other ratings. The ones in the middle, and so a 4 as the median, that's going to be right smack dab in the middle, right, on a scale of 1 to 7. And that's why we do odd number scales like this, is so that we can have this nice clear middle point. And 4 is our middle point then. And so you expect it to go up on this side and then down on the other. It's not perfectly clean, but pretty good. We're seeing a nice pattern here. This is what we'd like to see, that people seem to be converging right towards the middle on this one. Pussy, likewise, and this one's even a little bit more clean, with this nice, clean peak in the middle. Asshole, now we're looking at 3, so not quite the middle point anymore, but we're still getting this nice sort of peak. And another 3 was bastard, which again, you got this nice clean peak. Another one in the middle is dick, or another 3 I should say, is dick. This one's not quite as clean of a peak because you've got stronger ones here. So perhaps a little more disagreement on this one, maybe tending towards having it at the lower end than we saw with, for example, bastard, which is pretty much converging on that 3, whereas dick seems to be a little bit more flux there in between the two. Shit, even more so. You've got this flux here where some people are rating it a 2 and a 3. It's going to split between those fairly equally. And then, again, you're getting that nice peak converging on these 2 middle points. So maybe, 2.5 might be right where people are kind of converging. Whore has also a pretty nice clean peak going here, converging maybe on a 3.5 rather than a 2.5. So whore is a little more taboo than shit. Cocksucker, now we're moving over to the right edge. So that had a median of 5. And you're getting a pretty nice clean peak. There were people who rated it a 1, but most people were converging on this point, the 5 right there. And fuck, likewise, converges right about the 5 point. Again, there were some people who were rated at a 1, but most people were converging right in this middle area. Okay, so those were all pretty nice patterns, right? And people seem to be agreeing more or less, right? So there's going to be some flux. There's some people who rate everything at a lower end. Some people rate everything on a higher end. But for the most part, you're agreeing and sort of where they fit in the larger spectrum. But this is one where people just are all over the map. And there's no convergence. There's no peaks. It's just all over the place. And that's clitoris. And that one I think is interesting, because to some degree this is a clinical term, right? This is a term that you would use in a biology class, and yet it's a term that many people are uncomfortable with. Notice that more than 10 people rated it as the highest, as a 7, and yet 26 people rated it as a 1. So there's really no agreement on that one, which to me suggests that this is probably a change in process, where this is probably something that is becoming more and more taboo over time, perhaps. That clitoris began as a purely clinical term, but it's kind of achieving some tabooness. And we'll talk about how that can happen when we get into historical linguistics. Another one where you see no real peak is cum, which, again, I'm not sure that I can explain it, but we have people who are rating it a 1. There were a few people, a little over 5 people, were rating it a 7. There is kind of a convergence in the middle here. There's a bit of a peak here, but there's also a peak over here, so it's not a clean one. And again, it seems that there's some disagreement about how bad cum is. Is it a low-end one, or is it a high-end one? And those are the places where I find that there's something interesting going on, because we can sort of predict that there's a change happening. And I don't know which way this one is going. I don't know if it's becoming more taboo or perhaps less taboo, but I would guess that when we see this kind of disagreement, that something is changing in society. So I'm posting a lot of sort of the data for you to look at, and I'm actually going to make this one into a discussion so that you can make some comments. I'm not going to give any points. I'm not going to require you to contribute to this one, but I think enough of you are probably interested in what's going on here that I would like to get your feedback and see what patterns or any sorts of insights that you might have to the data. And I'm going to throw the raw data at you as well in just an Excel file, and you can take a look at it and you can make your own graphs and do your own sort of thing with it.